every day is different. And there's always a different challenge that we have to face. And, one of the things a question I had to ask myself is like, do I think, do I think, do I think I can do the impossible alone? And the answer is absolutely not. And I always get these downloads, especially when I'm reading and I'm doing I'm doing whether it's a devotional, I'm just reading the book, and all of a sudden I just kind of get this idea. Um, but here I am, I'm reading Matthew 14, when Jesus walks on water. And I'll share it with you briefly. Starting at verse 22, it says, immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him on the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he dismissed them, he went up on the mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance away from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. And when the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. It's a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid. Here we go with Peter. You already know how Peter was. Just like super bold, right? Always the one in the front. But Peter's reply is, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. And Jesus said, come. And then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. And I'm going to stop right there because we know what happens after that. But how powerful is it just to know that when you're confronted by a situation, or you want to do something that's truly remarkable, and you're like, man, how am I gonna accomplish this? How am I gonna conquer this task? It says right there, all we have to do is ask. And that's one of the things we forget to do, is ask. And it goes back to chapter 7 also, where, it says, ask, seek, and knock. Peter, even though we sometimes use Peter as that person, like, oh, Peter didn't have that much faith. Peter knew what to do. And because he asked, and it just goes to show like how God is, and he will use anybody to prove a point, to prove to you that you have more power than you actually believe. All we do is we see the circumstance, but God sees the end. And when you get to a place where you can actually see the end, things start to open up. You start to, your mind starts to shift. You see a new you. You have more trust and faith in God and how he works, because he's not operating on the same things we operate by. He doesn't have those small limiting beliefs like many of us have. He knows what the outcome is. He knows the potential that we all have. And it's just a matter of us believing, right? And I love quotes. And I'm going to share some with you. And like David Platt, he says, God actually delights in exalting our inability. He intentionally puts his people in situations where they come face to face with their need for him. How powerful is that? Exalting our inability. It's kind of like Moses. Wow. Here's another one by Robert Smith. It is idleness that creates impossibilities. And where people don't care to do anything, they shelter themselves under a permissive that it cannot be done. David Smithers. Until we reach for the impossible through fervent, faith-filled prayer, we will never fulfill our created purpose. That just lets you know that your purpose is gonna force you to do some things that you never thought you could do. It's gonna force you to think outside the box. It's gonna force you to rely more on God and trust. and do some things and become a person that you never thought you could be. Armin Geswine, when God is about to do something great, he starts with the difficulty. When he is about to do something truly magnificent, he starts with an impossibility. And this last one by A.W. Tozer. God is looking for those with whom he can do the impossible. What a pity that we plan only the things that we can do by ourselves. We cannot do anything that's worth doing by ourselves. We cannot. I just think about all the people that I know who are going through some type of hardship, struggle. They try to control the situation. They ask God, what is going on? What can I do? But you really have to turn it to God and ask God, what can he do? Because he's the only one who's going to turn this impossible situation into the possible. He's going to cause, and he's going to allow you to experience the victory. Don't try to do it alone. Don't try to do it alone. Ask, just like Peter did. And I guarantee your life will never be the same. God is just waiting. Let's go, y'all. Let's go get it. Let's do the impossible. I see y'all at the top. Why not you?